Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at vanta.com.
Today on CityCast Boise. A classroom sign meant to welcome every student became a lightning rod in the West Ada School District. When the teacher refused to take it down, the story became international news, but the district stayed silent. Now that teacher's resigned and sharing what happened behind the scenes. It's Monday, June 2nd. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is Sarah Ainama, educator and former teacher at West Ada School District. Thanks so much for being here today, Sarah.
Happy to be here.
When you were first asked to take the "Everyone is Welcome Here" sign down, can you briefly walk us through that conversation and how you felt about it?
Yeah, so it was during my lunch period, my lunch break during the middle of a school day. And my principal and vice principal came in and sat down and said, we need to have certain posters come down in classrooms, things that seem politically controversial right now. And they're like things that have like hands on it. And I pointed to the one that I assumed they were referring to. And they were like, yep, that one. And this other one that has the different colors on it that says everyone in this room is welcome. And I was very taken aback. I asked why that was something that was happening now. And they said, well, we're just trying to protect you. And these, violate the policy that talks about people being able to express differing opinions. I took a second to think about it and I was like, well, that sounds racist to me. And they're like, well, I know it's frustrating, but I can't remember exactly what they said, but that's just how it is now. That's just the way this policy is dictating how classrooms are decorated. And so they said, you can take it down just before the end of the day. So I had about 5 minutes left of my lunch break after that. And I just was very emotional about it. I could not stop crying about it. It just really, hit me hard. And I guess the best way I could explain how I felt was I just was so, so surprised and disgusted, frankly.
Well, and when the district said that the imagery, especially they specified the hands that had hearts on the palms, quote, expressed a personal opinion that some don't agree with in today's political environment. When you heard that as their reasoning, what did that signal to you?
To me, it's really obvious. It's that they are recognizing the fact that there are people that don't think that everyone is welcome. And in this case, very obviously, people of different skin tones are not welcome. And that they're considering that a legitimate opinion that they feel like a public school needs to recognize. But even worse than that was that I asked, had anyone even complained about this poster? And they said no. So this was all just like speculation and like preemptive to just make sure that no one were to ever have a problem with this poster just in case.
Yeah, and that was something that struck me when I saw your interview on KTVB and different interviews you did, where you mentioned no students had said anything as far as you were ever made aware. No parents had complained. Nobody had ever come into your classroom and said, what does that sign mean? Or why do you have that sign up?
Right. Yeah. In fact, the opposite. Teaching a world civilizations class, we start off by talking about how people know things about the past. So we talk about archaeology. And so kind of a beginning of the year activity that I do is called Classroom Archaeologist. And it's on like the second day of school. I have kids walk around my classroom with a little worksheet and they look for artifacts things that tell us about people from the past, but they're looking at artifacts in my room and writing down and doing a little sketch of them, writing down what they think it tells them about me as a person or as a teacher or what this classroom is like. And they write down things like, oh, she likes plants or she has a baby or dogs. And they also often do little sketches of the posters in my room. And a lot of the time, what they write down about how they feel in my classroom or the vibe that they get from my classroom is that they know that this is a place where everyone is welcome and that this is a comfortable place, has a comfortable feeling. They feel just welcomed unconditionally.
So knowing that this has been something your students have enjoyed or remarked on makes them feel welcome. How did it feel when you saw the internal district emails, some of which questioned your motives in having the poster up or portrayed you as the cause of the controversy by district leadership?
Yeah, it was very frustrating to have your employers do that. You know, a lot of people, not the district, but a lot of people have commented on it as saying it's a virtue signaling and that I shouldn't have to have posters like that. Like nobody needs to have posters like that. I'd be curious to know the people that say those types of things, what types of experiences they've had in public school, because don't know how they can speak for everyone, but I think representation matters for these kids and for them to see that when I say everyone, I really do mean everyone. And that when we say we embrace diversity, this is what we mean. I think that's important for them.
I saw those comments too. I saw people were very public about their feelings about this sometimes, using their full government name. And I would see people say that, like, you don't need a sign to feel welcome, which I feel like is incredibly ironic in a country that had whites only signs only 60 years ago,
Yeah.
70 years ago, that suddenly now we're upset about a sign that says, no, everyone is welcome here. Like, I don't think in my personal opinion, we are not far enough away from that to say we don't need those signs. Nobody needs those signs. Like, I think that is a very privileged position to say that people don't need signs to feel welcome, because I know certain signs have made me feel very welcome.
Hmm. Yeah. And the way that people have responded to this and reacted, some people have just proved that even further. It's like, wow, we do need this. You guys have said some outrageously, obviously racist things out loud about students in public school. And I just don't understand why people would, I mean, like, that's just not even a good argument for why you shouldn't have a poster like this. Also, reminders and displays, like, are pretty important in public school, especially in, I'd say, middle school. I mean, we have posters that remind students of what their behavior should look like, the rules of the school. I mean, all over the place, because it just sets an expectation, and a visual is can do a lot for students, especially of that age.
Absolutely. And Sarah, the district never really gave a public explanation. Like, to this day, the school year is over. To this day, they've never really made a public statement about this. What do you wish that they had said, either to you or to the community?
What I wish they would have said was, you're right. This is a value of public education, and this is not something that's controversial. In fact, this is something that we're proud of, and you should be able to keep it up. I mean, and I think if they would have done that straight out of the gate, then this could have been a way better example of how we can come together and what public schooling and education is really about, if that's how this could have played out. But I feel like the only public explanation that they gave was on the Ranch podcast, I guess. And I had a lot of questions after listening to Marcus Meyer's explanation on the Ranch podcast.
Yeah, no, I also did. It seemed like, also based on the comments, a lot of people had questions about the reasoning, because that was one place where they explicitly said the issue was the multiracial hands, and without further explanation.
Right. He also mentioned, that posters in classrooms, everything needs to be tied to curriculum. But then he did talk about how we do teach positive behavior supports. And so signs like school values, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he did say that we do teach positive behavior supports. So it sounded a little contradictory. That policy lists examples of things that are allowable under that policy, and it lists motivational posters as a learning aid, which I think we can all agree that students having motivation is definitely a learning aid. And I've asked multiple times why this doesn't constitute as a motivational poster.
Did you ever get any kind of response that felt satisfactory?
Mm-mm.
Hey Boise, it's Lindsay. Let's keep it real. If you've got something great to offer, like a business or an event, you should be advertising with us. People in Boise trust us to tell them what's good, and that could be you. Our listeners care about what's happening, and they love a good local recommendation. So if you want to make sure the best audience in town knows about you, then advertise on CityCast Boise. Learn more by emailing us at ads@citycast.fm. That's ads@citycast.fm.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Sarah, your refusal to remove the sign became national and even international news. I'm really curious, what was it like to be at the center of something so public and so politicized while you were still working for the school district that was pressuring you to remove the sign?
Yeah, it could be a little uncomfortable at times. I guess as a teacher, you're just so busy every single minute of the day. And the students would make comments about having seen me on the news, but I did not spend time in my classroom, like having a class open discussion about what was going on, because we have had a lot to get done. And I also just felt like I had no answers for my students. And I just thinking about how I'd be able to explain to a 12-year-old that some of their skin colors make people feel like they shouldn't be welcomed unconditionally. That's just not part of the classroom environment that I've created.
So was there ever a moment after, you were asked to take the sign down, initially you did, and then you put it back up. After that initial encounter, was there ever a time when this story was picking up steam, the pressure was on, that you considered backing down? And if so, what helped you stay committed to your values?
No. After I decided to put it back up, which was like a few days after I'd taken it down, there was no going back. In fact, when I decided to put it back up, which was on a weekend, I went in and did it right then. I had my husband and my baby come with me, and I put it up on a Saturday morning because, like in that moment where I just was like, no way am I going to be complacent in something like this. And yeah, not ever did I have any regrets.
And your stand against removing the sign served as a rallying point for, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, thousands of people in Meridian and around the Treasure Valley. Did any moment from the community response stand out to you or surprise you?
The students at Renaissance having their walkout and their protest was a total surprise to me. But I think there's like nothing more pure than that, than students themselves saying no. It's a rough thing for for students to understand that adults can be wrong sometimes. And I think it's very liberating for kids when they're at that age to understand what their personal values are and to be like have strong convictions in that, strong enough to stand up to adults about it. So I thought that was really cool. The Chalk the Walk was awesome. I was also very surprised about how many people showed up for that. I was at my school and there was probably like, well, you were there, probably like 30 people. I mean, like there wasn't a ton, but it wasn't, we support Sarah and Emma. It was all these kids out here like, yeah, of course everyone is welcome. Of course it's awesome that there's people that look different and that are different, and that if there's anywhere where they're all going to be welcomed, it's a public school.
Yeah, no, it was. I had been at the district office and then went to a couple of schools. And I think almost every school in the district got chalk messages on their sidewalks about welcoming everyone and inclusion and acceptance. And it was really beautiful to see the community coming together and wanting to stand up for our students and to say, no, like this is a line. Like we do want all students to feel accepted and welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not political or controversial.
Yeah. And I've said this before, but those kids standing up for me and like my poster, it's them standing up for each other. Like the message that they're supporting is the fact that they feel like all their peers and the other kids that are in their classrooms deserve to know that they're welcome there.
Sarah, what do you think this entire episode revealed about the values and tensions in the West Ada School District?
I still don't know. I don't know how the people that are in charge of the district or people that are administrators, I don't know what their personal values are, but I think it's really sad and really terrifying that they're just considering inclusion of our students to be just an opinion. I had a meeting with Dr. Bub and my principal, and I told him, if someone were to come to you and say, I don't like the sign in Mrs. Ainama's classroom that says everyone is welcome here and has different hands that are different skin colors, I would feel like you should say, okay, and why is that? And if they were to say, I don't think that everyone should be welcome here, as a public school official, someone that understands the code of ethics for professional educators, someone that has vowed to serve these students with the best education possibilities and be a champion for their well-being, you would say, well, what you're talking about is an exclusionary view. And in this case, obviously and blatantly racist. And as a public school, we don't consider that as valid. So sorry. I mean, they need to know what their values as a public school district and as professional educators are first and foremost, and know that every single day. And then when they deal with complaints from people in the public, they need to think through whether those go against the values of that school district or the law in the first place, and decide if that's something that they're going to recognize or not.
Did Dr. Bub have a response to that?
No. I mean, he said, the one thing he did say to me that I was surprised by was, we're just here asking you for a second chance. And I didn't really understand what that meant. I know that they want to set up a committee to like vet posters that teachers have if they're ever like deemed in violation. And I said, that's a great idea. Make sure it's done at the beginning of the school year so you're not coming into teachers' classrooms in the middle of the school year, in the middle of their day, in the middle of their lunch period, and telling them that you value racist opinions.
So on the record, you announced right at the end of the school year that you've resigned from West Ada School District. What went into that decision, and how are you feeling moving forward?
I mean, I hate to say it, but that decision was pretty easy for me. But, it was also hard because I did not want my students to feel like I was leaving them because of this. So it was kind of bittersweet. It mostly boiled down to the fact that it's difficult to work for people that you feel like don't have the same compassion for people that you do, that don't have the same morals and ethics, especially when you're taking care of other people's children.
Where will you be teaching next year, and what are you most looking forward to in that new position?
I do not know yet. I have applied and I'm just still waiting to hear back. But what I'm most excited about is just getting back to teaching. My classroom has always been about learning what we're learning about the curriculum. To be able for kids to do that, they need to feel comfortable and they need to know like what your expectations are as a teacher. And it was very clear for my students that I expected them to be respectful of each other and inclusive of each other. And that was never an issue in my classroom. And so I never had to spend time talking about that as a lesson. They just knew that through our interactions and classroom decor. But that meant that it left me all my teaching time to teach about our content. And so that's what I'm most excited to get back to is just teaching.
And if you could speak directly to the students and families in West Ada School District, since we won't have you with us next school year, what would you want them to know?
Sorry.
Take your time, no worries.
Well, I told them. I told them that I would miss them very much, and this had nothing to do with them. And that I hope they know that we are all different and that's cool. And that's what we talk about in world civilizations. We're all one species, come from all over the world. We have all different cultures. We have all different beliefs. And it's interesting. Kids like that class because that's so interesting. And that things can be different. Even if you don't agree with it, things can be different. And you can still be tolerant of that. And that as human beings, one human being doesn't get to decide how another human being deserves to be treated. And I just hope that they remember that they can be whoever they want and do whatever they want, and no one should ever make them feel otherwise.
Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to break this down and really share this intense and powerful and meaningful event that happened in West Ada. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back tomorrow morning to examine whether conservatism in Idaho is dead. You won't want to miss it.